to the place where singles shine, celebrating life, divine by design, faith and love, we intertwine. Route 77 with journey's prime.
Welcome to the Route 77 podcast. Today we're talking about something we all experience at some point, bittersweet moments. Sometimes feeling a little down about what we don't have is natural, like when you're single on Valentine's Day and wishing you had someone special to share it with. But other times that longing can quietly slip into coveting, making us feel like we're missing out on something we deserve. How do we tell the difference? When is it okay to feel bittersweet? And when do we need to check out our hearts? Let's explore that together today. Welcome to the Route 77 podcast. I am your host, Natasha, and I am here with Monique.
Hello.
And I think we will be a little while without David just because he's going through some stuff with his condo and with, I don't even know if he has a setup with him and all that type of stuff. So hopefully he'll be back soon, but we're not quite sure how that's looking for him. He had to move back with his parents for temporarily. He may not have his setup with him, so it's hard for him to come on. But anyway, this is our 2-year anniversary. So congratulations, Monique. We are at 2 years.
How does time go by so fast?
I don't know, because we were like February 14th of 2 years ago, and we're going to be at February 14th at the end of this week. So almost 2 years that you went, but this will be about 2 years of the podcast. We've hit our 100th episode since this last year, and we've hit our second year anniversary. So we're almost at 1,000 plays for what we're doing. I think 950 wrong one. I was going to check
The things that we went through in our first year, like Amber's brain surgery. And now we're heading into year number 3, and we may end up with another brain surgery. Pray for my daughter.
We're 962 plays. So we're almost at 1,000 plays in 2 years. Considering we're small, I think we're doing good stuff.
Yep. Yeah. And it's surprising when you hear the people who say that, yeah, I saw your podcast and I listened to it a time or two. Just a time or two?
Yeah, it comes up on it.
And but before we go any further, because this is usually around when people will stop listening, and subscribe to our podcast. It helps the algorithm so that our podcast will show up a little bit more frequently, especially for those who are searching for something like this. And follow us. That would be great.
Yeah, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook.
Yep.
If there's another social media platform you want us to try, let us know. We'll think about it.
Isn't there one that people have gone to that is not?
Oh, they went on one that's called Red Note. That was like whenever they thought Twitter was going to be gone forever. But apparently that's just like a Chinese one, which I guess, I don't know, they thought because TikTok they were going to go. But it was like it's mostly in Chinese. And then people were getting banned left and center because saying things is not okay. Some things in China. So that you can normally have the freedom to speak here and all those types of things. But I don't think we need to go to Red Note. No. We've still got TikTok, so we're good.
Yeah,
we're in Canada. We were going to have TikTok anyway.
And we have a website.
And we have a website, route77.ca. You might notice I had changed web hosting services. The website looks just a little bit different. It's got some actual different pages now for different things, and you can connect with us on there as well.
Yep. And I want to put my blogs up on the blog tab. I have to go and check it out to see that I can actually post on there.
Well, we can actually
Permission.
Change it around too. Yeah. I've got a dog and a cat here who think that I need to pet them at all times. So if I'm moving around, it's because
you've got one on one side and the other.
One hand and one dog on the other. And my cat keeps trying to bite me because she's upset that I haven't been down here petting her enough. But she should get a little more attention now.
Yes, because you're spending a little bit more time downstairs. Time, she says. What's wrong with you?
But yeah, I was thinking about last week, and I didn't even think about it in relation to Valentine's Day, but it actually works really well to talk about the concept of bittersweet. Because I try to look at comments on Facebook and things like that to see how people are reacting to things. And I remember, or just what people are putting on some of these web singles things. And then this person was like, oh, is that my sister's wedding? But it was so bittersweet but I'm trying to figure out, like, there's times when bittersweet is okay. And I think there's times when it's not okay. Or you can feel it, but you shouldn't dwell on it or try to decide if it's a good one or it's not a good one. And it's hard to explain, or I'll try to explain it. Say that you got to a Mother's Day and your mom had passed away. So you saw people spending time with their moms and you were like happy that they got to spend time with their moms, but at the same time you feel like, oh, I wish that I was here with my mom. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like you miss your mom and you can be happy for the other people being with their mom and still miss them and it not be a negative or not be a bad bittersweet. It's still bittersweet. But then Mother's Day comes around and then you go, oh, look at all the moms and I'm not a mom. And that's the difference, I think, is that yes, being a mom is a good thing to want, but I don't think you should go around just being like, oh, poor me, I'm not a mom.
There's even times like if you like in the church where Mother's Day or Father's Day come around, and I get it. We're single, we're not mothers, but we should not take that away from moms because we have a mom ourselves. We may not be moms, but we have moms.
Yeah.
And,
or when it comes to Valentine's Day, not having a significant other when other people do. And we do talk about, we have the Valentine's Day from when we started. And I think we talked about it again last year, but yeah, it's okay to want to be married, to wish in a sense that you had that romantic relationship or love that you see others experiencing or you have experienced in the past. But it's just sitting there going, I think the bittersweet from that is not a good, healthy one. Again, we don't want to say you can't feel it. You're going to feel feelings in a sense where you don't always control that you're feeling, but you can sometimes stop and look at your feelings and being like, okay, is this something what am I harboring inside me that's causing this? Or what is it that's causing this? And like I said, if it's that, say your father passed away and it's Father's Day or it's something like that, you can be like, or even if it's like you are a mom and your child has passed away, like you could see other, families interacting with their children on any day and then be like sorrowful, like happy to see them playing and running. But then at the same time, you're not getting to do that because they've passed away.
Yeah.
And not everybody has to pass away in order for you to build a positive bittersweet, but it's just,
I used to have that whenever I saw the little kids going up to the front of the church and singing the songs and doing the whole, and and you get the little girls in their cute little dresses and stuff like that. And I would always have that I loved seeing it. Those kids, they're so great and they have such fun. I would always be in tears because my heart hurt that my little girl couldn't be up there doing that. So that's a legitimate feeling of bittersweet because as a mom who has a special needs daughter, you had all these dreams and all these visions of what you wanted for their life. And then when those dreams are tossed out the door because they can't be realized, you are going to have those bittersweet moments. Like when like my brother's daughter became a nurse, works in the NICU in the Calgary Hospital. All these things that you see other girls, I'll never be a mom. I'll never be not mom. I'll never be a grandma. I'll never see my daughter get married, go to university, have a career. So many dreams that were dashed. It doesn't lessen my love for her. She is the most precious thing and I am forever grateful to have her in my life.
But I think we have to be careful that our bittersweet doesn't turn into bitterness. And that's where we move it to. It's either bitterness or like self-pitying.
I had to go through a lot of grieving processes. She's now I still can't believe that. And I've had to go through periods of time where I had to grieve, but I didn't grieve it all the time. I wasn't forever lamenting. It was only certain periods that would come up. And I would just kind of I'd be a little bit sad, a little bit bittersweet, but I wasn't bitter because then I think that I would be discounting her life as it is now, as the person that she is now. And that's not fair to her. Does that make sense?
And I think too, it does, because you're basically like somehow she's not enough.
Yeah.
who she is now. And then but also you have to remember that you're enough. Like you not being a grandmother doesn't change your worth.
No.
And it doesn't change the validity of the experiences you have as a person that you are and the experiences that you have. And so if we start to feel that, and I think it's okay if we get those feelings like occasionally and it's here and gone, but it's when we hold on to them. And I think a good example of that is Naomi in the Bible, because
Right.
she actually changed her name to Bitter, Mara.
And I'm sitting there going, yeah, I can relate. Naomi, you and I we're both.
Famine caused them. They ended up leaving the country. They had her two sons marry Moabite women, so not even of Israel. And then they both die. They don't have children.
Her sons died, not the girls.
Her sons died, and the wives were going to come back with her. And Orpah went back to her family at Naomi's request, and Ruth stayed with her. And then, yeah, we do have the joy.
Yeah, what she said to Naomi, that she can't go. She says, I can't go back to my family. You are my family. Your God will be my God.
And your land, my land. Yeah. And so she could have chosen to have that bitterness take over because she lost her husband. She didn't have children either. Like at least Naomi got to be a mom. At that point, Ruth didn't even get to be a mom. She had just been a wife.
Yeah.
But she, and then we work our way through and we have the romantic story of Boaz, which I do want to talk about the marriages or how marriages happen in the Bible, because sometimes like we have these ideas like, oh, I want to meet my Boaz or whatever. Anyway, that's a whole other that's another podcast I want to talk about. But yeah, so
I don't know, that seemed a little bit sketchy the way that happened with Boaz. It was almost like he was conned
in the sense, but yeah, you just feel so that's another podcast I want to have. But it's just interesting to see like that Naomi actually she actually embraced the bitterness part of her.
Yeah.
But she didn't deny the love that she had for Ruth, and she still encouraged her and told her what to do and things. But it's just she took the bitterness to heart. And it doesn't mean that you can't have like horrible tragedy happen in your life, that like you can overcome it with God.
Yep.
He provides. And we have to start looking at ourselves as more than the sum of these expectations that we expect to have in our lives. And also we're told that we should have, and we're told that we should want, and that if we don't get them, then somehow we're less. And I get it. Like I spent decades being the pity party bitter. I would have said bittersweet at times, but that's because I was really playing the woe is me card in my head.
Did you put some pop to your pity party?
Little violins playing.
Oh, woe is
me. But yeah, but you felt like you were somehow like you had the right to do it.
Yep.
I have the right to feel so
miserable.
I'm miserable and like a martyr to life. It's weird. But you're just like, it definitely would have categorized it as bittersweet in the moment, but it was not. It was like, I think a healthy bittersweet happens in the moment and then you move on beyond it. And even I think you can feel bittersweet that you're not a mom or a dad or a spouse for the moment and then move on.
Yep.
You can feel it at the time of Valentine's Day at times and just be like, oh, I wish that I had someone to spend it with. But then you move on.
Yeah.
And I see so many people, like single people, who are basically trying to forget Valentine's Day exists. They're like, just going to get together with some other single friends. And if you put your head in the sand, you'll pretend that it didn't happen and you won't have to feel the way you're feeling or whatever. Instead of just being, it's Joe down the road's birthday. Who cares? Just because it's not your birthday. And just because there's a day that
my birthday. No, I don't. Because I've got a
milestone birthday.
A milestone birthday. I was like, how? Yeah, I know. Aren't you going to celebrate? I don't know. It's just a day. I like it better when people say that I don't look my age because, yeah. Shauna, I saw my friend Shauna that I've known since I was 5 years old. I have friends that long. That's how long I keep my friends. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Well, she came to see me on Sunday and she said, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yes. She said, I don't know when it happened, but suddenly I started to realize that I seem to have stopped aging inside at like 25. I would say more 35 for me. I would go with 25 because your insides feel younger. And then you look at some of the things that the kids in the Taekwondo class go to and go, I want to do that. And my body goes, don't even think about
What
it.
are you thinking about? Yeah, I know. What part of me do you want me to break just to prove that you're not 20 anymore?
Yeah. And that causes some bittersweet because which
Yeah.
I wish I had that younger body that could do that kind of stuff. Because
Yeah, me too.
when I was younger, I used to be very athletic. I loved gymnastics. I could walk on my hands, cartwheels. I loved doing cartwheels. Now it's just that's a long way to the floor. And that
Yeah, even when I start to
I
do
still
things,
kind
I'm just like,
don't do it.
even when I do have to do a cat roll with the kids, it's to show them what I'm doing. If I'm warmed up and I'm in the moment of the test or the class, I'm fine. But if I'm just standing there and I like, there's no, it just feels like a lot more like extreme.
Even a somersault, that the easiest roll to do, a somersault. I'm gonna break my neck. I'm sure of it. My
The
head just
instruct
doesn't want to. My head doesn't want
in
to.
my instructor scenario, they're like, you just have to do some front rolls, and I've got a front roll, a turn around front roll out. I got a front roll and a front roll on the other side. And I'm like, but we're pretending we're on an escalator, so we have to go down below. So I can't stand up the front roll out. I have to try to front roll with enough momentum to get back up again without being standing first. Cause anyway, that was interesting in practice. And I'm just like, ow. It's okay. He's like, only front rolls. I'm like, hurry. It's okay then.
6 or 12 or
Or in my 20s, like instructor Scott, whatever.
he can fly. We all know that.
He knows he can play. But yeah, so it definitely there's times when I get frustrated and I'm just like, oh, my knees, I wish they would just not hurt. They hurt all the time, no matter what I do. The escalator thing, we're supposed to pretend like we're going below the escalator, but you got to do it upright. You can't lean forward. And ow.
Yep.
That hurts the knees.
Yep. Yeah.
Instructor Don is older than me, and we were both like, ow.
What was it?
No.
It was only 2 years ago that I was almost doing a complete scissor split. Again,
It goes
no.
away so fast. It goes away so fast.
Oh, I can't believe how quickly. And all because we're like COVID and pandemic and all that kind of stuff. And then I actually did get COVID. And although I recovered from that quickly, I kept getting sick after that frequently. So it took about 2 years for me to actually extend the amount of time that I've been getting sick. But when I tried to do a splits again, my knees and everything, and yeah.
Yep.
And then the older you get, it's harder to lose the weight and get yourself back into shape. It's like your body's going, if I must, don't want it now.
Right. I get
Whiny.
it. Yeah. I don't. I want to eat donuts. Come on. I'm an adult. I should be allowed to eat donuts.
Yeah. And then everybody starts talking about diabetes and your blood sugar. And I'm like,
You're like,
cholesterol levels. And then they start talking about other things that you need to go to see the doctor about, where you've got to get poked and prodded and probed. Yeah.
I know. They're like, have you done this? And I was like, never. You really should. Oh,
Haven't you ever had? No, the doctor has not yet prescribed that for me.
it helps when you don't have a doctor. It helps when you don't have a doctor.
It probably helps if you actually go to your doctor.
I have no doctor. I just have to like do the walk-ins to get my prescriptions. I don't have long-term history.
No.
But yeah, so we kind of digress, but that's okay. That's part of it.
Well,
That's part
these
of it.
these are all
The
things that we
bittersweet about. Yeah, and it's true. Like we try so hard to be or do or what we just see other people, and it's hard not to want to be them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's people who will see us and be like, I wish I was more like that.
Yeah, it's
And
not crazy.
you're going like, what? Because I feel when they say, oh, I wish I could do like Taekwondo like you, whatever, in my 40s or whatever. And they're like, I just like, but I just Like, it's not like I needed to be superpowers to do it. Like it just, but then other people could do things like eat healthy because they just did it and they
Yeah.
don't find it an issue. And I find it a very big issue to try to eat healthy because I hate cooking and I'm very
And
lazy about my
vegetables.
food. And I don't really like vegetables. She gets them into me sometimes, but
I sneak them in.
yeah, the smaller the better. Those like riced vegetables are the best because you can't even tell.
You can't tell it's vegetables, even though it's all vegetables. Um, and I've had those conversations with people too, where they say this, oh, wow. Yeah, I'm just too old to do. And then I tell them how old I am and that I'm doing Taekwondo. And they look at me going, yeah, I don't think I could do that.
That's like when parents will say, I'm too old. I'm like, my friend, and Monique has I've had her permission to tell people her age, has done this, and she's going for her second degree, and she's her age. And then like they're like, and then that is, oh, I just don't have time. So they're like, okay, my dad, they can't use the age one.
So you can't use the age, not with me around, because if I can do it and out of the couch,
Yeah.
potato, just so you know, and getting me out of the house off the couch when I'd rather sit at home and watch TV, yeah, it takes some doing. But part of me was just always wanted to do it. And I didn't want to have that. And sometimes this is what bittersweet is, a lot of regret. And I think that's where we get that bittersweet feeling, is because we have that sense of regret. And it just, my dad isn't doing really well. And I went to Calgary weekend to go and see him before it got too late and I'd never see him again. So I'm really glad that I went. And it was a very bittersweet time, because he is literally a shell of himself. He's skin and bones. He barely eats a teaspoon, which is not enough to sustain a person's life. And he just lays there because he has no strength. He's so weak. And you try to get him to eat and he refuses. And it's so sad to see. But I knew that if I didn't see him, even with that, and I prayed for him and I spoke with him, even though he has Alzheimer's, does he understand? Will he remember? Only God can do that for him. But leaving there was bittersweet. I couldn't stay. And even though everybody said, oh, no, you can stay, somebody's got to pay bills still. And the bittersweet of the time passed and the things, the regret, and I didn't want to have that. I didn't want to have the regret of not seeing him. And sometimes when we have those bittersweet emotions, some of that is colored in regret.
Yeah. And some things you can look at and you can change it. It was like, oh, I wanted to do my master's, and I'm like, because my ex, whatever. And then my counselor at the time was like, okay, why don't you? Okay, what do you want to take? Boom, he's there. Look, you can take it here. Boom. It was just like, and it wasn't like you were too late for it and get into apology, get into almost anything that you want to get into. It's not too late, especially this day and age with the amount of online courses and more people who are quote unquote older are actually taking that track now of education. Yes, there's my other cat, in case nobody's seen her yet. This is her tail. It was born like this, so nobody worried. It's good at grabbing everything. It grabs things.
Cords.
All things off, have to be careful.
And she's got a little bit of an attitude.
Yes.
She will let you pet her, and then all of a sudden it's
Yes.
petting you.
Very bittersweet when we're petting her.
A little bit of careful. I'll pet you a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to go now.
Are we still okay? Are we still okay? Yeah.
Are we still friends?
But yeah. So there's a lot. There are things that you can do in your life that will change. If you think that you see some stuff on social media and you're like, oh, I wish I could do that. Maybe you can't, but maybe you can.
I will try.
Yeah. So if it's like something that's beyond you, then yeah, you can be like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I could play an instrument, but not enough to actually learn one. But I could learn one. Incapable. I may never be like
Mozart.
yeah, or anything. But I could still theoretically
Oh,
learn.
see,
I
see,
just know me. I don't have.
that's my regret. I just never got to be.
It's more of like a passing fancy. Oh, that would be cool to be able to do an instrument as well as some of these people do. But then move on. But then there's other things like the Taekwondo really stuck with me. There was a part of me that was always sad that I didn't finish when I started it in university. And I kept wanting to get back into it. And then I finally did. And look, I just passed my third degree and I'm keeping going as far as I can. I'm running a school. I didn't even think that's where I would be. But that came after I let go of a lot of those bittersweet that had turned to bitter feelings of not being married or not being married to a good husband or not having children and thinking that I was completely like, I'd be like, oh, look at those moms with their babies. And I would be like, little martyr over there. Oh, woe is me. I could just see it. But then I like did something about it in the sense that no, I didn't go have a kid, although I technically could go and do something. But I was like, wait a second, like my life doesn't have to revolve around whether or not I have a kid. And if I want to work with kids, I can. If I don't want to work with kids, I don't have to. But I couldn't have done what I'm doing now if I hadn't first let that go.
Right.
And if I hadn't let go, then where would I be right now? I'd just be like, not doing this. But it's just a lot of the things have to, I think when you look at your feeling of bittersweet, look inside you if it has lasted longer than a few moments or something, or maybe the length of time of whatever it is that you're looking at that's causing it or whatever. And then be like, okay, is this something that's healthy to dwell about long term? Or, and I'm pretty sure no is the answer, even if it's a good thing that you've been like, if you are sad that your mom's passed away or something. But if you constantly dwell on it, then that bitter is going to take over.
No,
And
and it
as
also
it,
depends on why you have those feelings of that. Like I spent the time, like I slept at mom's house. My mom and dad are not together. And so I slept at mom's house and there was, I think, was it last night, Saturday night? I came back and I just wanted to hug my mom. And I just hugged mom, I just need to hug you. I just need to hug you. And she said, okay. Because when you're losing one parent and I believe that my dad knows how I feel about him, knows that I love him. And I shared that with him and I shared salvation with my dad. And that was another thing that I didn't want to have pass is that I never got the chance to tell my dad that salvation through Jesus Christ is very important and that it was important for him, for his eternity, because I told him, I says, I want to see you in heaven. Don't you let me down. You need to go to Jesus. I said it nicely though. But I didn't want to have that regret. I didn't want to have that feeling later on of, to dwell on that. And whether my words got through to dad or not, as long as he's on this side of the grave, I know that God can do amazing things. And it's not up to me, anyways. I can't save my dad. I can't force him to do something that he doesn't, if he doesn't want to do it. But my responsibility, I still have to say something. I had to say something. So I didn't want to have that going further down the road and have that. I wish I'd have said something, So,
yeah.
But,
So I think a lot of, yep.
But I got to hug my mom. I couldn't tell my mom yet. I don't know why. Mom gets angry fast. Don't talk about Donald Trump, okay? Or chicken.
To be fair, that Donald Trump does bring that effect on a lot of people.
My word.
So when we look in Exodus 20:17, we're reading the 10 Commandments. Do not covet your neighbor's house. Do not covet your neighbor's wife, his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. And I think bittersweet can be an indicator of
Discontentment.
potentially
Coveting.
discontentment and potentially coveting.
Yeah.
And I think you need to look at it and be like, Are you coveting your neighbor's wife? And I don't mean in a way that you want to have an affair with her. I mean that she's a wife.
I want a wife.
Now you can look at
I
it
don't
that
want a
way.
wife.
No, but
That's weird.
if you're, but she gets to be a wife. So you're coveting her that you wish you
Her
were a wife.
position.
Or, yeah. And so you can look at it
Although
in different ways.
they could be coveting her personally.
They could be.
Don't be a
Yeah,
David.
don't come it that way either. Don't anyway, but we're just saying it says this could be taken in different ways
Yeah.
in a sense. If you don't covet your neighbor's wife or your neighbor or anything that is your neighbor's, and
Yeah.
everyone is your neighbor because we find that out. Who is my neighbor? Everybody is your neighbor.
Yeah.
So you don't go around coveting, and then that's the problem is that we take the bittersweet feeling that we feel in the moment and then we cultivate it.
Yeah.
And that cultivation is where the problem is, not in the original feeling of it, the cultivation of it later.
Yeah.
Is
Where is
where
it?
the thing.
Oh, I wish I had that. I wish I had $1 million.
I deserve that. Why does that
deserve $1
person get it
million.
and I don't? Right?
I'm going to talk. This is how we do the conversation. You say, "Oh, I wish," and I said, "I deserve that," or "I wish,"
Right?
and you say, "I deserve that." No, we don't. Technically, we don't deserve anything. Take that.
God
Good.
gives us the grace of what he gives us of his grace that we receive any of these things. So yeah, he may not give us the things that we think we want.
Yeah.
And the good things that we think we want, like spouse, children. They're not bad things to want, but he may withhold them from us for a time or forever. And if we're going around just being like, oh, look at those people, they're celebrating Valentine's Day. I can't even look at Valentine's Day. I just want to lock myself in my room on the 14th of February and just watch movies or something.
You can't
Or
watch
TV
Hallmark because those are Christmas.
No, don't watch Hallmark. But just like you trying to escape the people instead of actually going, it's freeing when you can actually say, that's awesome that you have someone to spend Valentine's Day with. What are you planning to do? That sounds so cool. And when you actually don't feel any negative reaction to that, it's when you know that you've released it. If you're still feeling bittersweet about something that you don't have control of that way, if you keep feeling it to the extent, again, it becomes a prolonged thing.
40th wedding anniversary? Wow.
That's amazing. Are you celebrating? And
you have 4 grandchildren?
yeah.
And you just had a brand new one? Oh, congratulations. Liz.
I can't tell you how many, originally, like how almost backhanded because I wasn't saying negative things, but in my mind, I was like, that's not fair, even though I didn't really think of that, but I was like in all those words, but that's what my reaction was.
Well, now
that's not fair. That's not fair.
I've got two of my coworkers who are celebrating grandchildren. Liz, the one I work with, her daughter she caught the flu and she became dehydrated and she went into labor. She was about a month early or maybe just shy of a month early. And she went into labor because she was sick and dehydrated and it was causing the amniotic fluid to decrease and causing distress for the baby. So off they go to the hospital. She's immediately put on IV. And then halfway through her labor, stop. The baby's already 5 centimeters dilated coming through and things were stopped. So they had to induce her. She has a healthy little baby boy. And mom was very happy, but everybody got sick that weekend. And I was just like, I am so happy that everything worked well for your daughter and for your new baby grandson. I am so happy for you guys and congratulations. And because these are the things we should be celebrating. And I had no feelings of bittersweet anything. I was just thankful that the baby was okay.
And that's awesome. And I don't want people to think that they're not allowed to feel these things and sometimes feelings happen, but it's what we do with them is the issue. Feelings can happen, but not all reactions are appropriate.
Right.
It says in Psalm 62, verse 8, Trust in him at all times. You people, pour out your hearts before him. God is our refuge. Like when you are going through the struggles of it, God wants to hear about it.
Yep.
But I'm not saying he's ever going to run out of patience for hearing about it. But if you're constantly going back and being like, oh, I'm not married, like you're constantly going back to it, then you got to look in your heart and being like, hey, God's not going to be like, hey, I'm done with this. I've heard it 15 times already. But I think there's something going on in our own hearts if we're being so fixated that we can't move beyond it and see that God has provided for you.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're a parent and you're giving your child everything that they need and more, but all they see is the one thing they don't have. So they're always like, oh, I need a phone, I need a phone, I need a phone, or whatever it is. And you're like, you've got a roof, you've got food, you've got all the clothes you need, you've got like a game console, you've got like we give you all these things, but the one thing that you don't have, you get fixated on it so everything else is not right. And I think we need to look at ourselves. If we're constantly, yeah, you're going to feel it and you pour it out. But the idea is that you're pouring it out so that God can bring himself in and his healing into it and help you even in the motions of the moment, but also to realize what you should do with them and how you should refocus your life and saying, okay, let's take our focus off getting married and off having children. And okay, what is God wanting us to do right now? Right. And ask yourself, like we've talked about before, ask yourself the hard questions, like, what if God never gives me this? And when your reaction will tell you how you're doing. Yeah. Your reaction to that question.
Yeah. And don't suppress your feelings about it, thinking that I'm just going to bury it and pretend it doesn't exist, because then you lose something when you do that. You start closing yourself off to the possibilities of what can happen. And don't shame yourself for having the bittersweet. Like every time I saw the kids in kids church singing these little happy songs for the congregation, and I would cry with a smile on my face. I felt the bittersweet, but I also recognized that is just a momentary feeling that's fleeting and it goes away when I realize that this is still a blessing from God.
And I think too, as we go about things, even like Valentine's Day coming up. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's geared towards people who are in romantic relationships.
But I like chocolate.
Yes, we all like chocolate. A little too much. Anyhow, but it doesn't mean that you can't go and spend time with the people that you love. It doesn't have to be romantic. It can be family, friendship, children, and parents. You can still have an enjoyment and actually celebrate the love that you have for one another. If you want to do that, go for it. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to pretend that it's a counterfeit celebration because it's not romantic love. It's a celebration of the love people show for one another. It can be done in a way that's healthy and that doesn't make you hide for the night and try to pretend it didn't happen or that. And if you don't want to go and if that's triggering you right now, then maybe stay home. Like right now while you're dealing with it, don't put yourself in situations that are going to constantly pull you back there as much as you can at the moment. And hopefully as time goes by and God's working in your life and what he's calling you to do right now, and then you work through that, you actually are able to slowly reintroduce these things back into your life. And you actually don't feel that bittersweet. You don't feel that discontentment or coveting that's sneaking in there.
So sometimes that can be hard though.
It is.
Because there are times like I don't always know that the kids are going to be singing from kids' church. When they sing it now, I don't have any of that. I feel I don't know what the feeling is, but I always love listening to the kids singing.
The enjoyment, the joy.
Yeah. And I may still cry, but it's got nothing to do with, oh, I wish Amber were there because she's too old now. It was something so I think some of what I had to do is and I think I remember feeling this way, is that rather than focusing on what I didn't have, just feeling grateful that I had Amber in my life, because there have been many times throughout her life where I could have lost her completely. So even though she's not up there singing with the other kids, she is still singing in her own way. Right. So I just had to remind myself to be grateful that I had her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's times like that we can't avoid or we don't know, but there's things that we can avoid. And I think I remember you just saying recently that you stopped listening to some of the podcasts and reading stuff for a while because it was starting to trigger you a bit.
Yeah.
And so actually, so backing away from some of this stuff is good. If you're on social media and all you're seeing is everybody getting ready for Valentine's Day and you're not ready for that, then just forego social media for a while until it passed over. There's things that you can control that you don't put yourself into these positions until you're you've dealt with it.
Yeah. What you're referring to, the political landscape that we're in right now with the turmoil that's going on and everybody, and it's going, and it's like this, and these guys, and
the comments.
And it's just,
I took a 3-month break from social media a few years ago because I was starting to get too wrapped up in it. And now I refuse to read comments unless I'm ready for it. And most of the time it's because I want to see people's reaction to something as opposed to, I'm trying to see where people are in some of it.
Yeah.
And I don't take it so seriously. But yeah, I had to take the 3 months off of social media just to step it back from it.
This Thursday and Friday is the court case for the prorogation. It may or may not change the landscape. Who knows? Yeah. And the polls are just ridiculous right now. It's just,
I've got you started now.
I know. And I have tried, and I find myself actually turning them off and saying, I just can't listen right now because I'm getting too anxious because it just seems like we're going to heck in a handbasket. And I just and I worry, and I don't want to worry about what the future holds because I need to remember who holds my future. Right.
And there's only so much that we individuals can do.
Yeah. I can't do anything. I can't make the landscape change. I can't go down to the States and say, Trump, can you just not take us over yet? My brother is ready to pack his bags and move to another country. And I'm going, where you can go? They're all in the
crazy everywhere.
We're all in the same boat. I don't know if there's any place that's safe to go. Maybe find a deserted island where there's no government.
And no Valentine's Day.
And no Valentine's Day. Just coconuts. Bring a volleyball. Paint a face on it. Call it Wilson. Yeah, right. That's crazy.
So hopefully us talking about Bittersweet can open up some of your heart to yourself, or maybe help you to understand what it is to feel that and when it's healthy and when it's not.
You put Philippians in there. And that just reminded, I saw that, I'm going, yeah, that's right. See, and this is why you need to stay off of social media, because social media is bad.
But find us in all the social media.
Wait, we're there. Philippians 4, verse 8, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And then just a little bit further down, whereas it says in verse 11, but I'm going to only go into half of it because the first part is about gifts and stuff like that. For I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Amen. Amen.
Amen. So even if you're struggling with bitterness or discontent or covetousness, remember, it's okay to feel the emotion in the moment. Like, emotions are just a reaction to stimuli or whatever. It's what you do with them. That's the issue. If you dwell on them, if you keep feeding them, then you're starting to have an issue. And then you need to look at your heart and be like, am I just feeling this kind of fleeting emotion and then I move on with my life? Or is it actually pulling me down and I'm going to soon be changing my name tomorrow because I'm just bitter?
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And think of other ways, like if Valentine's Day is a very big trigger because you are single and it's your greatest lament. Excuse me. There are other ways of celebrating love. You don't have to have a partner. There are family members that are always looking for, like I gave my mom and my dad and my brothers, and I hugged them all and I told them all, because you never know when it's going to be the last time you can say, I love you to a family member. So don't neglect that. And don't wait for Valentine's Day just to say that either. I think when we first did the podcast, I had mentioned if you want to give out flowers, go to a flower store, buy a bucket of carnations or whatever, and just start randomly handing them out. Yeah. It may seem like such a small thing.
Funny, you can just say Happy Valentine's Day and then move on. Happy Valentine's Day and move on. You never know.
You never know. Yeah. And that's such a
You're
nice
just
thing.
showing the love of a neighbor.
Yeah. And you're just brightening somebody's day who maybe that person wasn't going to get any flowers and you gave them one and you made their day. What a wonderful thing to do.
What better way to celebrate love?
Yep.
Than to show love for others.
Yeah. I'm going to do it this weekend because I'm going to see my daughter.
There you go.
Going to give her all sorts of loving.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Thank you for listening. Hope that we spoke some truth into your life, and that if you have heard something that has helped you, we ask that you would pass this along to other people who might also help them. We're trying to become bigger, but slow moving, but we know that God's in control and that He is the one to bring this ministry to wherever it goes. So we thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all here next time.
And my closing scripture, Psalm 37:4, delight yourself in the Lord and He will give you the desires of your heart. This is bye for now.
Bye. Bittersweet feelings are a part of life, but what we do with them matters. It's okay to feel a longing for good things, but we need to be careful that it doesn't grow into resentment or discontentment. Instead of fixating on what we don't have, we can choose gratitude and trust that God's plan for us is good, even when it looks different than we expected. If today's episode spoke to you, share it with a friend, and let's keep encouraging one another in this journey. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time, and remember to live your single life to its fullest.